In the early days of Lancaster County, nestled within the wilds of Pennsylvania, a mist-laden marsh stood as an ominous sentinel, guarding secrets that even the bravest souls dared not approach. This marsh, located near the burgeoning community of Holtwood, held an entity known to the locals as Mary Marshwood. The tale of Mary Marshwood echoed through generations, a tale born of the intertwining threads of history and imagination. As the settlers established their roots and laid the foundation of what would become Holtwood, they were drawn to the natural beauty of the Susquehanna River that flowed nearby. Yet, within the heart of that beauty, a treacherous marsh cast an eerie shadow. This marsh was home to Mary Marshwood, a woman with a twisted past that merged with the dark waters. Long before the colonists arrived, Mary had been a free spirit, a woman with a wildness that matched the untamed land. She had been known for her enchanting allure and vibrant emerald eyes that seemed to reflect the very heart of the marsh. Born to a family who had lived in harmony with the land for generations, Mary was deeply connected to the waters that surrounded her home. However, Mary's life took a tragic turn when her family fell victim to an epidemic that swept through the land. Alone and grief-stricken, she sought solace in the marsh that had been her refuge since childhood. It was during one fateful evening, when the mist hung heavy over the waters, that Mary met a fate that would forever alter her existence. Venturing deep into the marsh to collect herbs for her ailing family, Mary found herself ensnared by quicksand-like mire. As panic gripped her, the marsh seemed to come alive, its tendrils wrapping around her ankles and dragging her further into its watery embrace. With each gasping breath, the marsh seemed to seep into her very being, and in that moment of desperation, Mary Marshwood became something more than human. Emerging from the depths, Mary was reborn a creature of the marsh, embodying both the allure of nature's beauty and the terror that lurked within. Her skin took on a translucent hue, her fingers elongated into sharp claws, and her hair transformed into tendrils that danced like water reeds. The legends tell that her lips turned a deep shade of green, her teeth growing into needle-sharp points, ready to ensnare any who dared approach. With her newfound powers, Mary began to haunt the marsh, her sorrow and anger echoing through the ages. As Holtwood flourished and Lancaster County took shape, tales of Mary Marshwood's malevolent presence spread like wildfire. The settlers, who could feel her gaze even in the safety of their homes, began to fear the marsh after sunset. The villagers warned their children of Mary Marshwood, a cautionary tale of the consequences of meddling with forces beyond comprehension. As the years passed, Mary's rage grew. The memories of her past life mingled with the pain of her transformation, fueling her thirst for vengeance. She began to lure wanderers, drawn by the eerie mist and the whispers that seemed to beckon them closer. With a siren's call, Mary would entice her victims to the water's edge, where they would become trapped in the marsh's clutches. As the waters claimed each unsuspecting soul, Mary's power grew stronger. She reveled in the dread that seeped into the hearts of those who ventured too close. Holtwood became a place of hushed whispers and fearful glances, as the legend of Mary Marshwood spread beyond the boundaries of Lancaster County. And so, the tale of Mary Marshwood, once a free spirit, became etched into the annals of Pennsylvania folklore. Her presence, a reminder of the price of grief and the dangers of treading too close to the mysteries that lie beneath the surface, endured through generations. Even today, as the Muddy Run Pumped Storage hydroelectric power plant stands as a testament to the region's progress, the marsh's secrets remain shrouded in mist, and the memory of Mary Marshwood's haunting gaze lingers in the shadows, waiting for those who dare to venture near the waters of Holtwood. In the years following the establishment of Holtwood, whispers of Mary Marshwood's sinister presence began to circulate among the settlers. The locals, still finding their footing in the new land, would gather around flickering fires, recounting chilling tales of encounters with the malevolent entity that dwelled in the marsh. 1745, The Vanishing Hiker. The first documented account came in 1745, as a group of young men embarked on a hunting expedition near the marsh. As the mist descended, they spotted a lone figure moving in the distance. Drawn by curiosity and bravado, they followed the silhouette through the marsh's labyrinthine pathways. Their lanterns cast eerie shadows, and the whispers of the wind seemed to carry their laughter away. However, only one of them returned. White-faced and trembling, he recounted how his companions had vanished one by one, swallowed by the marsh's treacherous waters. He spoke of hearing their panicked cries, the gurgling of the mud as it swallowed them whole, and the echoing silence that followed. 1771, The Widow's Lament. In 1771, a widow named Eleanor ventured near the marsh in search of her missing husband, who had failed to return from his fishing trip. Holding a lantern high, she called out his name in desperation, her voice breaking the stillness of the night. As the mist thickened, Eleanor caught sight of a shadowy figure standing at the water's edge. Her heart leaped with hope, but it quickly turned to dread as the figure stepped forward. In the flickering light, Eleanor saw a woman with hair like water reeds, her lips a sickly shade of green, and her fingers ending in razor-sharp claws. Eleanor's scream pierced the night as Mary Marshwood lunged at her, sharp teeth gleaming in the lantern's glow. 1803, The Ill-Fated Picnic. In the early 1800s, a group of picnickers decided to enjoy the natural beauty of the marsh on a sunny afternoon. As they laid out their feast near the water's edge, laughter filled the air, drowning out the stories that had circulated through the years. Unbeknownst to them, the laughter was soon replaced by cries of horror. One by one, the picnickers were pulled beneath the surface, the mud and water claiming them with a ferocious hunger. Their screams echoed through the marsh, blending with the haunting whispers that had become a trademark of Mary Marshwood's presence. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, the picnic area was left in eerie silence, with only ripples on the water's surface as evidence of the tragedy. 1836, The Lost Child. In 1836, a mother ventured into the marsh in search of her missing child, whose curiosity had led him astray. She clutched a lantern in one hand and her son's favorite toy in the other, her heart pounding with a mixture of determination and fear. The mist seemed to close in around her, obscuring her vision as she called out for her child. In the distance, she heard the soft sound of a child's laughter, mingling with the mournful cries of the wind. Her hopes soared as she followed the sound, but as she drew closer, the laughter turned into haunting whispers that seemed to crawl along her skin. And then she saw him, her son, standing at the edge of the marsh, his eyes vacant and his laughter a haunting echo. Before she could react, a figure emerged from the waters behind him, its long fingers reaching out to claim him. The mother's scream echoed through the marsh, blending with the anguished cries of countless others who had fallen victim to Mary Marshwood's grasp. As the tales of these gruesome encounters spread, Mary Marshwood's reign of terror became deeply entrenched in Lancaster County's history. The mist-shrouded marsh became a place of dread, a reminder that even amidst the beauty of nature, darkness could take root. The settlers' cautionary whispers grew louder, and the memory of Mary Marshwood's chilling presence ensured that Holtwood's marsh would forever be a place of fear and foreboding. 1867, The Haunting Melody. In the late 1800s, the legend of Mary Marshwood gained a new layer of terror. A traveling musician, drawn by tales of the marsh's haunting beauty, decided to compose a mournful melody inspired by the stories of the malevolent entity that dwelled within. Armed with his violin, he ventured into the marsh, determined to capture its essence in his music. As he played, the mist seemed to thicken around him, the air heavy with an otherworldly presence. His melody, a melancholic lament, echoed through the marsh, and it was then that he caught a glimpse of her. Mary Marshwood emerged from the waters, her hair flowing like river reeds, her claws glinting in the moonlight. Fueled by a mixture of fascination and terror, the musician continued to play, his fingers dancing over the strings as though possessed. Mary's lips curled into a ghastly smile as she approached, her eyes locked onto his. With each note, the musician's energy seemed to wane, his life force draining with every chord. And then, as the final notes hung in the air, the musician's body crumbled to the ground, his eyes devoid of life. Mary Marshwood's laughter echoed through the marsh, a macabre symphony that blended with the fading echoes of the violin's last refrain. 1892, The Curious Historian. In 1892, a historian fascinated by Lancaster County's folklore embarked on a journey to uncover the truth behind the Mary Marshwood legend. Armed with notebooks, maps, and a steadfast resolve, he navigated the marsh's winding trails, determined to separate fact from fiction. Days turned into weeks, and the historian's obsession grew. He meticulously documented every step, every sound, and every sensation. But as he delved deeper into the marsh's heart, the air grew colder, and the whispers that once seemed distant became a constant presence. One night, as he huddled by his lantern, deciphering old manuscripts, a rustling sound caught his attention. He looked up just in time to glimpse a figure lurking in the shadows. Mary Marshwood emerged, her eyes fixated on the historian, her gaze a blend of curiosity and hunger. He tried to reason with her, to understand her story, but her laughter mingled with the mournful cries of the wind, drowning his words. As the historian's voice grew hoarse, he realized that he had ventured too close to the heart of the legend. Mary Marshwood's icy fingers brushed his skin, and the darkness of the marsh claimed him. 1938, The Unfinished Art. In the midst of the Great Depression, an artist seeking inspiration arrived in Holtwood, drawn by the tales of Mary Marshwood's haunting presence. Armed with canvases and brushes, he set out to capture the elusive essence of the marsh on his canvas. His paintings were a mix of beauty and darkness, capturing the eerie allure that had captured the hearts of generations. As he painted, the mist seemed to gather around him, wrapping him in a cocoon of isolation. The artist lost himself in his work, oblivious to the passage of time. But with each stroke of his brush, Mary Marshwood's presence grew stronger, her curiosity piqued by his attempt to encapsulate her essence. One night, as he worked on a particularly haunting piece, the artist felt a cold breath on the back of his neck. He turned to find Mary Marshwood standing before him, her eyes reflecting the depths of the marsh's secrets. She reached out, her fingers tracing the contours of his face, and a sense of foreboding washed over him. Desperation fueled the artist's brush strokes as he tried to capture her ethereal beauty, but as the first light of dawn broke, he realized that his art was incomplete. Mary Marshwood's laughter resonated through the marsh, her satisfaction evident as she faded into the mist. The artist's incomplete masterpiece remained a haunting reminder of his encounter with the malevolent entity that had claimed so many before him. These stories, woven through time, served as a tapestry of terror, each encounter with Mary Marshwood adding to her legacy of dread. As the years passed, the marsh's chilling secrets remained, preserved in whispers, songs, and painted canvases, a constant reminder of Lancaster County's dark past. 1965, the photographer's demise. In the mid-20th century, photography became a means to capture both reality and the intangible. A photographer, drawn by the allure of the marsh and its legends, arrived in Holtwood armed with his camera. He believed that through his lens, he could unravel the mysteries that shrouded Mary Marshwood's existence. As he ventured deeper into the marsh, camera in hand, he felt the weight of Mary's presence pressing in on him. He snapped photographs of mist-shrouded landscapes, gnarled trees, and still waters, hoping to capture her essence in a single image. But the more he tried to capture her, the more his surroundings seemed to distort. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the photographer found himself surrounded by an otherworldly glow. His camera's shutter clicked incessantly, capturing the marsh's ethereal beauty. But in the midst of the glow, he caught a glimpse of Mary Marshwood's form, her fingers extending like tendrils toward him. Desperation mingled with terror as he tried to flee, but the marsh seemed to twist and turn, its pathways leading him in circles. The camera continued to snap pictures, the light growing blindingly bright. And then, in an instant, everything fell silent and dark, the photographer's fate sealed as his final photograph depicted the moment of his demise. 2002, the filmmaker's obsession. As the new millennium dawned, a filmmaker with a penchant for the macabre arrived in Holtwood, intent on capturing Mary Marshwood's legend on film. Armed with modern equipment and a crew, he embarked on a project that he believed would finally unveil the truth behind the stories. Days turned into weeks, and the crew's enthusiasm began to wane as strange occurrences plagued their production. Equipment malfunctioned, unexplained sounds echoed through the marsh, and shadows seemed to move on their own. The filmmaker dismissed these events as mere superstition, determined to create a masterpiece that would stand the test of time. During a night shoot, as the crew set up their equipment near the marsh's edge, a thick mist enveloped them. The filmmaker's camera captured the eerie atmosphere as he directed his actors. But as he reviewed the footage, he noticed something chilling: a figure lurking in the background, her presence hidden within the mist. As the filming continued, tensions within the crew grew. Each night seemed to bring new challenges, and the filmmaker's obsession with capturing Mary Marshwood's essence on film bordered on madness. One evening, as he watched the playback of a particularly intense scene, the mist seemed to seep through the screen, filling the room with an oppressive chill. And then, as the filmmaker gazed into the camera's lens, he saw her, Mary Marshwood, her eyes fixated on him, her lips curved into a sinister smile. The room grew colder, and a feeling of suffocation washed over him. The crew rushed to his aid, but by the time they reached him, he was gone, his body devoid of life and his eyes reflecting a terror that could only be attributed to his final encounter. 2019, the YouTuber's quest. In the digital age, tales of Mary Marshwood continued to captivate the imagination. A YouTuber, seeking to explore the dark side of Lancaster County, arrived in Holtwood armed with cameras, microphones, and a determination to uncover the truth. With each step into the marsh, he chronicled his journey, blending history with legend. His videos gained a following, each installment drawing viewers deeper into the mysteries that surrounded Mary Marshwood. Yet, with each upload, a sense of unease seemed to permeate the comments section, as viewers claimed to hear whispers and see shadows in the background. One night, as he recorded a segment near the marsh's edge, the mist thickened around him, the air growing frigid. His camera captured the eerie atmosphere, his voice quivering as he recounted the tales he had unearthed. But as he reviewed the footage, he noticed a figure standing amidst the mist, a woman with eyes like emeralds, staring directly into the camera. As his investigation continued, the YouTuber's demeanor grew increasingly erratic. He would venture into the marsh at odd hours, his eyes reflecting a mix of obsession and fear. His videos became disjointed, his words laced with a sense of urgency. And then, one day, he uploaded a final video, a raw, unedited stream from within the marsh. Viewers watched in horror as he walked deeper into the mist, his voice shaking, his footsteps echoing in the darkness. And then, in an instant, the feed cut off, leaving only static and the haunting sensation that something malevolent had claimed him. Through the decades, the tales of Mary Marshwood evolved and adapted, leaving a trail of horror that transcended time. The marsh, once a place of beauty and serenity, stood as a testament to the darkness that could lurk within even the most tranquil landscapes. The stories continued to be told, passed down through generations, a reminder that some legends are born of darkness and refuse to fade away. Amid the chaotic scene of flashing lights and emergency personnel, a chilling air of uncertainty hung over the abandoned part of Little Britain, Pennsylvania. The presence of ambulances, police, firemen, and investigators hinted at the unfolding of a grim and mysterious event. Crowds gathered, their whispers carried by the wind, as they watched the aftermath of the confrontation between humanity and the unknown. Standing near the lifeless body of the monstrous creature that had terrorized the local towns, the investigators turned their attention to a man who bore the air of someone who had seen the darkest corners of reality. He recounted the tale of his encounter, explaining how he had managed to take down the aberration that had been causing havoc among the unsuspecting townsfolk. "Well, thank you," one of the investigators said, his voice carrying a mix of gratitude and relief. "These things have been causing a problem for the local towns. What are you going to do now?" The man, his gaze steady and resolute, glanced over the scene with a sense of finality. Just as he was about to answer, his phone buzzed with a notification, drawing his attention away from the conversation. A video played on the screen, depicting the final moments of a YouTuber whose fate had intertwined with the legends that had echoed through time. As the video played, the man's expression remained unchanged, his eyes reflecting a depth of understanding that went beyond the surface of the screen. His thoughts seemed to linger in the shadows of the past, where tales of Mary Marshwood and her malevolent legacy resided. The perspective shifted, revealing the man's identity, Johnny Vanjuk, the storyteller who had delved into the darkest realms of horror and chaos. His eyes, keen as they were, held a piercing awareness, and the .44 Magnum holstered at his hip hinted at a readiness for whatever lay ahead. With a sense of purpose, Johnny Vanjuk turned to the investigators, his voice laced with a determination that had guided him through countless eerie tales. "I got a swamp hag to hunt," he declared, his words a quiet promise of action. As he walked away from the scene, the police officers exchanged glances, a mixture of respect and curiosity evident in their expressions. They had encountered the enigmatic storyteller before, in various forms and identities, but his presence always brought a unique blend of intrigue and uncertainty. The abandoned part of Little Britain fell into an eerie silence as Johnny Vangeck's form disappeared into the shadows. The echoes of legends, monsters, and the unknown lingered in the air, mingling with the scent of damp earth and the whispers of the night. And in that moment, as the tale continued to unfold, it was clear that darkness and dread were never truly banished, only confronted by those with the courage to face them head-on. As Johnny Vangeck ventured closer to Holtwood, the atmosphere grew heavy with an eerie anticipation. The road seemed to stretch endlessly, flanked by towering trees that cast elongated shadows in the fading light. The scent of dampness hung in the air, mingling with the faint aroma of decaying leaves. The surroundings felt almost like a barrier, separating the known from the unknown, the tangible from the uncanny. As he neared his destination, Vangeck's eyes caught sight of a series of abandoned houses nestled among the trees. The structures stood as solemn sentinels, their windows broken, roofs sagging, and walls bearing the scars of time's passage. In the half-light of the setting sun, their silhouettes seemed to dance with the shifting shadows, adding an extra layer of eeriness to the scene. The path leading to the houses was overgrown with tangled vegetation, as if nature itself had tried to reclaim the space. Vangeck tread carefully, his boots sinking into the muddy ground. The air was thick with an oppressive stillness, punctuated only by the distant hum of insects and the rustling of leaves. Approaching the first house, he observed its broken windows, the glass shards glistening like fractured memories. The front door hung askew on its hinges, creaking faintly in the breeze. A shiver traced Vangeck's spine as he stepped across the threshold, his footsteps accompanied by the squelching sound of waterlogged wood beneath his feet. Inside, the scene was one of desolation. Furniture lay scattered and water-damaged, their outlines distorted by the effects of time and neglect. The air smelled of mold and decay, the mustiness clinging to every surface. Vangeck's flashlight cut through the darkness, casting eerie shadows on the walls that seemed to whisper of past inhabitants and the stories they left behind. Moving from room to room, Vangeck observed signs of violence that had torn through the house. Broken furniture, claw marks etched into the walls, and shattered glass all spoke of a struggle that had taken place within these walls. Whatever had happened here had left a mark, a lingering trace of the uncanny and the inexplicable. As he exited the first house and made his way to the next, the sense of unease deepened. The pattern repeated: abandoned, waterlogged spaces bearing scars of violence. Each house seemed to tell a different tale of terror, a snapshot of lives disrupted by forces beyond comprehension. Vangeck's intuition heightened, his senses attuned to every rustle and creak. The passage of time seemed to blur, the boundaries between past and present wavering as he explored the ruins. As he reached the last of the abandoned houses, the sinking sun cast long shadows that seemed to stretch toward him, as if beckoning him further into the heart of the mystery. The journey through the series of forsaken homes left Vangeck with a profound sense of foreboding. The waterlogged decay, the shattered remnants of lives, and the signs of inexplicable violence all painted a vivid picture of the darkness that had taken hold. And yet, the marsh, the heart of the legend, still lay ahead, its secrets shrouded in mist and the echoes of tales untold. As Johnny Vangeck stood at the threshold of the last abandoned house, a distant sound caught his attention: the faint, rhythmic splashing of water emanating from the marsh. The splashes were like a haunting rhythm, a melody of uncertainty that tugged at his curiosity. With each splash, the atmosphere seemed to thicken, the air growing cooler as though the marsh itself held its breath. Intrigued and guided by a mixture of concern and his innate attraction to the unknown, Vangeck followed the sound. His steps were careful, each footfall muffled by the damp earth beneath his boots. The marsh stretched before him, an expanse of mist-shrouded water that seemed to swallow the horizon. As he approached the water's edge, his eyes caught a movement, an ephemeral silhouette struggling amidst the waters. The splashes grew more urgent, accompanied by the faintest cries for help. Without hesitation, Vangeck plunged into the water, his every muscle tensing as he fought against the cold embrace of the marsh. Amidst the murky waters, he reached out and his fingers brushed against cloth, a desperate grip of survival. Vangeck's strength carried him further, his movements fueled by a determination to rescue the drowning figure. And then, as he emerged from the depths, his arms cradled the form of a teenage girl. Gasping for breath, the girl coughed and sputtered, her eyes wide with fear and relief. Vanjik's voice, a calm and steady presence amidst the chaos, reassured her as he guided her to solid ground. She shivered in the cold, her clothes clinging to her waterlogged form. "Are you all right?" Vanjik's words were a lifeline, a question that carried a weight of concern. The girl nodded, her voice shaky as she recounted her ordeal. "My friends and I came here. We wanted to see if the stories were true." Her words were punctuated by the quiver of her voice and the tremble of her hands. Her tale unfolded a group of teenagers lured by the legends, drawn to the marsh in search of the elusive Mary Marshwood. But as the night grew darker and the mist thickened, fear took hold. Their laughter turned to uneasy whispers, their bravado shattered by the sense that they were not alone. "They saw her," the girl continued, her eyes haunted by the memory. "A figure emerging from the mist, those green eyes, and they ran. Left me behind." Vanjik's gaze, a mixture of understanding and empathy, met hers. He had seen the echoes of similar tales play out in countless stories, the fragility of courage in the face of the unknown. "It's all right now," he reassured her, his voice a soothing balm. "You're safe." As the marsh's mist clung to the air, the two stood on the precipice of the legend. The echoes of the girl's friends, scarred by the encounter, seemed to linger like ghosts in the mist. And in that moment, amidst the stories and the shadows, Vanjik's presence was a testament to the resilience that drove humanity to confront the darkness, to face the legends that echoed through time. As Johnny Vanjik and the teenage girl stood on the edge of the mist-shrouded marsh, their gazes scanned the surroundings, searching for any sign of the girl's friends. The air was heavy with the weight of anticipation, and the silence seemed to stretch into eternity. With each passing moment, the unease that had settled over the marsh grew more palpable. Vanjik's flashlight cut through the mist, its beam revealing the contours of the landscape, gnarled trees, tangled underbrush, and the still waters that seemed to hold secrets of their own. The girl's breath was shaky, her eyes flickering from one shadow to the next, as if expecting her friends to emerge at any moment. "Are you sure they're not just hiding?" Vanjik's voice was gentle, his words a blend of curiosity and concern. The girl nodded, her voice trembling. "They wouldn't have left me alone, not like this." A gust of wind rustled the trees, their leaves whispering secrets that remained just out of reach. The mist seemed to weave a tapestry of uncertainty, where reality and the unknown converged. As the minutes ticked by, Vanjik's instincts told him that something was amiss. There was an undercurrent of danger that lingered just beneath the surface. Vanjik motioned for the girl to stay close as he began to navigate the marsh's edge, his senses attuned to every rustle and movement. The water's surface was like a mirror, reflecting distorted images of the landscape. Shadows danced in the corners of his vision, hinting at a presence that remained elusive. The girl's footsteps were soft but laden with apprehension as they moved in tandem with Vanjik's. Their search took them deeper into the marsh, each step an exploration of the unknown. The splashes that had drawn Vanjik here seemed to have faded, replaced by an almost suffocating stillness. As they continued their search, their surroundings seemed to shift. The mist grew thicker, and the shapes of the trees seemed to twist and distort. The marsh had a way of playing tricks on perception, blurring the lines between reality and imagination. Vanjik's flashlight beam caught something glinting in the distance, a glimmer of metal amidst the underbrush. Cautiously, he approached, his heart quickening as the details came into focus. It was a cell phone, abandoned in the mud. The screen displayed a familiar video thumbnail, a group of teenagers laughing and joking, a moment frozen in time. The girl's eyes widened as she recognized the scene. "That's them," she whispered, her voice quivering. Vanjik's instincts told him that they were close to something significant, something that could unravel the mystery of the girl's friend's disappearance. As he picked up the phone, a chill ran down his spine. The marsh seemed to hold secrets that defied explanation, and the shadows that danced at the edge of his vision whispered of stories untold. With the phone in hand, Vanjik turned to the girl, his expression a mixture of determination and concern. "We're going to find them," he assured her. "No matter what." The mist embraced them like a shroud as they continued their search, their footsteps echoing through the silent expanse of the marsh. The stories of Mary Marshwood and her legacy of darkness had woven a tapestry of uncertainty, and Vanjik was determined to unravel its threads to bring light to the shadows and to face the horrors that lay hidden within the mist. As Johnny Vanjik and the teenage girl pressed on through the mist-shrouded marsh, his determination to find her missing friends remained unyielding. The phone he had found was a breadcrumb of hope, a thread connecting them to a mystery that seemed to defy explanation. Yet, as they traversed the landscape, every step yielded no further clues, no sign of the vanished teenagers. Vanjik's keen senses were on high alert, his gaze scanning the surroundings for any hint of movement, any anomaly in the mist. But the marsh held its secrets tightly, offering no clear path forward. The underbrush seemed to swallow their progress, the terrain growing more treacherous with each passing footfall. "I don't understand," the girl's voice trembled with frustration and fear. "We should have found them by now." Vanjik's expression mirrored her uncertainty, his mind churning with possibilities. Had they been taken by the same darkness that had haunted the abandoned houses? Or had the legends of Mary Marshwood woven an illusion that masked their presence? The mysteries seemed to multiply with each unanswered question. As they reached a small clearing, Vanjik's flashlight beam fell upon something that made his heart sink, a torn piece of fabric snagged on a branch. It was a scrap of clothing, unmistakably from the girl's friend. He plucked it from the branch, his fingers tracing the torn edges as if they could reveal the story behind its presence. The girl's eyes widened as she recognized the fabric. "That's from Sarah's jacket," she whispered, her voice catching in her throat. Vanjik's gaze remained fixed on the torn fabric, his thoughts racing as he pieced together the puzzle. The marsh seemed to close in around them, the mist thickening as if to obscure the truth. He knew they were close to uncovering something significant, something that could unravel the enigma that had gripped the marsh for so long. "We need to keep going," Vanjik's voice was a quiet resolve. "There has to be more to find." With each step forward, the marsh seemed to transform. The mist curled and shifted, the shadows deepening as though they held secrets just out of reach. Their search became a journey into the heart of the unknown, a confrontation with the legends that had whispered through time. As they ventured deeper, the marsh's secrets remained elusive, veiled by an atmosphere of tension and unease. Vanjik's instincts told him that they were on the cusp of discovery, that the truth was within their grasp. The echoes of the past seemed to linger in the air, mingling with the scent of damp earth and the restless sighs of the wind. With determination burning in his eyes, Vanjik pressed on, leading the girl through the shifting landscape of mist and shadows. The marsh's mysteries had woven a complex tapestry of uncertainty, and he was determined to untangle its threads to find the missing teenagers and to uncover the truth that had eluded them for so long. As Johnny Vanjik and the teenage girl ventured deeper into the mist-shrouded marsh, a sense of unease settled over them like a heavy blanket. The terrain seemed to shift beneath their feet, the landscape twisting and turning as if guided by an unseen hand. Vanjik's flashlight cut through the mist, revealing gnarled trees and tangled underbrush, yet the path ahead remained elusive, as if the marsh itself was leading them astray. With each step, the feeling of déjà vu intensified. The trees, the bushes, the very landmarks they passed seemed to loop back on themselves. It was as though they were trapped in a labyrinth that defied logic, a maze with shifting walls that guided them in circles. No matter how far they walked, the surroundings remained eerily familiar, as if mocking their attempts to break free. Vanjik's senses were on high alert, his mind racing to make sense of the situation. He had faced countless mysteries and horrors, but this was different, a web of uncertainty woven by a force that defied explanation. The girl's apprehension mirrored his own, her voice trembling as she voiced the unspoken question. "Are we going in circles?" Vanjik nodded, his eyes narrowing as he surveyed their surroundings. The marsh's mist seemed to have taken on a life of its own, shifting and coiling as if guided by an unseen force. The sense of being led astray was palpable, a mixture of frustration and desperation hanging in the air. "We were caught in some kind of loop," Vanjik's voice was a mixture of frustration and determination. "But we were not going to give up." With every turn, every step that seemed to bring them back to where they started, the mystery deepened. The marsh held them in its grasp, its secrets woven into the very fabric of their reality. Vanjik's flashlight beam illuminated the path ahead, yet the mist seemed to play tricks on perception, distorting distances and shapes. As time stretched on, Vanjik's senses remained vigilant, his gaze scanning for any sign of an exit from the looping landscape. He could feel the weight of time's passage, the hours stretching and warping as the marsh held them captive. But he refused to succumb to the sense of futility. The same determination that had driven him to face countless horrors fueled his resolve now. "We need to break this cycle." Vanjik's voice was a quiet insistence, his eyes locked onto the horizon. He could sense that they were close to a breakthrough, that the marsh's secrets were on the cusp of revelation. The girl's grip on his arm tightened, her eyes reflecting a mixture of fear and hope. "How do we do that?" Vanjik's gaze remained fixed ahead, his mind racing for a solution. The mist seemed to part slightly, revealing a faint glimmer of light in the distance, a distant clearing that beckoned like a beacon. "We keep moving forward." Vanjik's words were resolute, his voice cutting through the mist like a blade. "No matter what, we push through. We're not going to let this place control us." With the clearing as their goal, Vanjik and the girl pressed forward, their footsteps a determined rhythm against the shifting ground. The marsh's attempts to ensnare them in its cycle seemed to intensify, the mist growing thicker, the shadows more menacing. But Vanjik's resolve was unshakable, his determination a beacon of light in the darkness. As they approached the clearing, a sense of triumph surged within him, a realization that their willpower was stronger than the marsh's tricks. The mist seemed to relent, the path before them remaining clear as they stepped into the clearing, victorious against the cycle that had sought to confine them. The marsh's mysteries were far from unraveled, but Vanjik's victory over its attempts to lead them astray was a testament to the strength of human spirit, the same spirit that had driven him to confront legends, horrors, and darkness throughout his journey. And as they moved forward, the mist curling around them like tendrils of uncertainty, the unknown remained their companion, guiding them deeper into the heart of the marsh's secrets. As Johnny Vanjik and the teenage girl emerged from the mist-shrouded maze into the clearing, a sense of relief washed over them. The clearing felt different, untouched by the shifting illusions of the marsh. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth, but it lacked the suffocating tension that had characterized their journey through the looping landscape. Vanjik's eyes remained vigilant, his senses attuned to the surroundings. He could feel the weight of the marsh's mysteries pressing upon him, a reminder that they were far from the heart of its secrets. Despite the victory over the cycle, the unknown still held sway over the landscape. As he caught his breath, Vanjik's attention was drawn to the phone. He had found the thread that had guided them through the labyrinth. With a subtle movement, he brought up the photo of the group of friends. His eyes scanned the image, and as he looked closer, a nagging suspicion began to form. The details that had escaped his notice before now stood out in stark relief. The clothes worn by the teenagers were incongruous with the present day. The fabric, the styles, everything screamed of a different era, one that didn't align with the current year. Vanjik's heart quickened as realization dawned. He had been tricked by the photo, misled by a cleverly crafted illusion. His fingers zoomed in on the image, studying the grain of the film, the texture of the paper. The camera quality was unmistakably that of an older film camera, a technology not consistent with the present time. The clothes, once perceived as modern, now bore the hallmarks of the early 1980s. Vanjik's mind raced, the pieces of the puzzle falling into place. The marsh had manipulated their perceptions, creating a false image that drew them deeper into its mysteries. The mist had woven an illusion that obscured the truth that they had unwittingly stepped into a narrative that transcended time. Yet, Vanjik kept his discoveries to himself. The girl, her gaze distant as she caught her breath, had already endured enough uncertainty. He knew that revealing the truth could add to her confusion and fear. Instead, he pocketed the phone, his thoughts churning with the realization that the legends of Mary Marshwood and the mysteries of the marsh were more complex and enigmatic than he had initially anticipated. The mist continued to curl around them, the atmosphere a blend of tranquility and unease. Vanjik's gaze met the horizon, his mind focused on the journey ahead. The girl's presence was a reminder that he was not alone in his pursuit of truth, that the mysteries of the marsh were a shared endeavor. As they stood in the clearing, the echoes of time seemed to whisper through the mist, hinting at the layers of history that had woven the legends into reality. Vanjik's determination burned brighter, his resolve unshaken by the challenges that lay ahead. The marsh's enigma had deepened, but Vanjik was ready to uncover the layers of darkness that had cloaked its secrets for so long. As Johnny Vanjik and the teenage girl stood in the clearing, the mist curling around them like tendrils of uncertainty, his senses remained attuned to the subtle nuances of their surroundings. The weight of the marsh's mysteries lingered in the air, a constant reminder of the enigma that lay ahead. Despite their victory over the looping cycle, Vanjik's instincts told him that they were far from the heart of the legends that had drawn him here. His attention shifted to the girl at his side, his eyes studying her form as she caught her breath. A subtle detail struck him: she was still soaking wet, her clothes clinging to her as if they had just emerged from the water. A frown tugged at the corners of his lips as he considered the anomaly. The passage of time since they had left the water should have allowed her clothes to dry at least somewhat. Vanjik's mind raced through possibilities, his analytical nature probing the situation. He glanced around, his thoughts drawn to the mist that seemed to hold secrets of its own. The marsh's illusions had already proven powerful, and he couldn't shake the suspicion that their encounter with the mist might have left a lingering effect. Yet, he kept his observations to himself. The girl had already endured a journey fraught with uncertainty and fear. Voicing his suspicions could add to her distress, and Vanjik was determined to keep her as calm and focused as possible. Instead, he offered a reassuring smile, his words meant to redirect her attention. "We're making progress," he said, his voice steady and confident. "We've overcome the marsh's tricks so far. We're going to find out what happened to your friends." The girl's eyes met his, a mixture of gratitude and trepidation reflected in her gaze. She nodded, her trust in Vanjik's expertise evident. As they continued their journey, the mist seemed to recede slightly, revealing a path that beckoned them further into the marsh's depths. Vanjik's mind remained alert, his senses scanning for any sign of a new illusion or trap. The marsh's enigma was a maze of uncertainty, its secrets buried beneath layers of mist and shadows. The echoes of legends and the mysteries of time seemed to converge in this place, and Vanjik was determined to unravel their threads. As they moved forward, the mist's embrace clung to them like a shroud, yet Vanjik's focus remained unshaken. He would uncover the truth that had eluded them, the truth behind Mary Marshwood, the legends, and the anomalies that had drawn him into this narrative. And in the midst of uncertainty, he would stand as a beacon of resilience, driven by a determination to face whatever darkness lay ahead. As Johnny Vanjik and the teenage girl reached the campsite by the water, the sense of unease seemed to intensify. The mist curled around them like tendrils of uncertainty, casting an otherworldly hue over the surroundings. The marsh's secrets were close, a palpable weight that hung in the air. Vanjik's instincts remained on high alert, his eyes scanning the campsite for any sign of the truth that had eluded them. But it was the girl's reaction that caught his attention: her anger, her frustration. She seemed consumed by a rage that burned just beneath the surface, her gaze fixed on the garbage that marred the natural beauty of the area. As he observed her, Vanjik's attention was drawn to a spare change of clothes, identical to what the girl was wearing, neatly placed on a chair. A surge of realization coursed through him: the mist, the manipulation of time, it all pointed to a narrative that transcended the present day. Before he could process this new revelation, something within Vanjik shifted. His gaze turned toward the trailer, the old, weathered trailer that bore the marks of decades past. In that moment, he felt a connection, a gnawing familiarity that defied explanation. He moved toward the trailer, each step laden with a sense of foreboding. As he reached the trailer, a surge of determination overtook him. Without hesitation, he began throwing rocks, nearby debris, anything within reach, into the marsh. His movements were fueled by an inner turmoil, a recognition that the marsh's illusion had ensnared him. The anger, the frustration, it all became a driving force that fueled his actions. A large garbage can became his weapon, its weight propelling it through the air and into the marsh with a resounding splash. As it landed, the sound seemed to reverberate through the mist, carrying with it an eerie echo. And then, as if responding to his defiance, something unthinkable happened. The can disgorged human bones as it sank into the water. Vanjik's eyes widened, his mind struggling to process the horrifying truth. The mist had concealed more than illusions, it had hidden the grim reality of the marsh's history. The legends, the mysteries, they were rooted in a darkness that had claimed lives and left echoes of suffering. A primal scream of anguish pierced the air, and Vanjik turned to see the teenage girl charging toward him, her anger transformed into a fierce determination. Their eyes met, a collision of emotions, his determination to uncover the truth and her fury at the revelation. As she lunged at him, Vanjik's instincts kicked in. He sidestepped her attack, his years of confronting horrors guiding his movements. He knew that the girl before him was not who she seemed. She was a manifestation of the marsh's malevolent power, a vessel of rage and darkness. Vanjik's training, his resilience, his battle-hardened spirit, it all coalesced in that moment. He deflected her blows, his movements precise and calculated. With each strike, he pushed back against the darkness that had ensnared the marsh, refusing to be swayed by its illusions. The mist seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, the air charged with tension as Vanjik and the girl clashed. His determination was unwavering, his willpower stronger than the marsh's attempts to control him. And as they fought, the echoes of time and legends converged, creating a battleground that transcended reality. In the heart of the marsh, the battle between light and darkness raged on. Vanjik's every move was a testament to his resilience, his commitment to confront the horrors that lay hidden in the mist. And as he stood against the girl, a vessel of the marsh's malevolence, he knew that the only way to break the cycle of suffering was to face the demon at its source, to uncover the truth that had remained shrouded for far too long. "So you're Mary Marshwood after all." Vanjik's voice was laced with a mixture of accusation and defiance, his eyes narrowing as he stared at the teenage girl before him. The pieces of the puzzle had fallen into place, revealing a truth that was both unsettling and horrifying. The marsh's enigma had a face that had been hiding behind illusions and darkness. The girl's lips curled into a twisted smile, her form contorting as her true self emerged from the facade. The transformation was grotesque, a manifestation of the darkness that had plagued the marsh for centuries. Vanjik's voice, despite the tension that hung in the air, remained steady as he spoke his truth. "Well, got to say you are one ugly motherfucker." His words were a defiant declaration, a testament to his refusal to be intimidated by the horrors that lay before him. The girl's true form was a grotesque fusion of human and monster, a creature that defied description. The mist seemed to coil around Mary Marshwood, her presence a palpable force that exuded malevolence. Vanjik's senses were on high alert, his focus laser-sharp as he assessed the situation. He could feel the weight of history in the air, the legacy of suffering that had been woven into the marsh's fabric. Mary Marshwood's laughter echoed through the mist, a chilling sound that sent shivers down Vanjik's spine. Her form seemed to shift, her voice dripping with a mockery that cut deep. "You humans are always so quick to judge based on appearances." Vanjik's grip tightened on his flashlight, his knuckles white with determination. He had faced horrors before, monsters, demons, and creatures that defied the imagination. Mary Marshwood was no different, a manifestation of darkness that sought to feed on fear and suffering. As the mist swirled around them, Vanjik's mind raced for a plan. He had confronted horrors beyond comprehension, and he knew that the key to defeating Mary Marshwood lay in his ability to outsmart her, to turn the tide of the battle in his favor. "You think you can control this place, that you can manipulate time and perception." Vanjik's voice was a mixture of accusation and resolve. "But I've faced things far worse than you." Mary Marshwood's form twitched with a mixture of anger and amusement. Her power was undeniable, a force that had shaped the legends and tragedies that had unfolded in the marsh for centuries. Yet, Vanjik's defiance was unyielding, a reminder that the human spirit was a force to be reckoned with. In the heart of the mist-shrouded marsh, the battle between light and darkness raged on. Vanjik's flashlight beam cut through the fog, his every movement calculated as he faced the embodiment of the legends that had drawn him here. The echoes of history and suffering converged, and as Vanjik stood against Mary Marshwood, he knew that the battle was not just for his own survival, but for the truth that had remained obscured for far too long. As Mary Marshwood's power surged, her malevolent force knocking Johnny Vanjik into the marsh, a maelstrom of struggle and darkness consumed him. The water seemed to close in around him, its weight pressing down on his senses as he fought against the current. Panic and determination waged war within him, his instincts urging him to break free from the suffocating grip of the marsh. Time stretched and twisted, each moment a battle against the overwhelming force that sought to drag him into the abyss. But just as his strength was waning, as the darkness seemed poised to claim him, a figure emerged from the mist, a hand reaching out, grasping his own. With a surge of strength that bordered on miraculous, Johnny Vanjik was pulled from the water, his body gasping for air as he was hauled onto solid ground. Blinking through the mist in disorientation, his gaze met the face of the man who had saved him, an older version of himself, the Johnny Vanjik of Vault 717. Recognition flickered in their eyes, a history shared across different worlds, a connection that transcended time and place. The older Johnny, his features weathered by the harsh realities of his world, extended a hand to help the drenched and disoriented Johnny to his feet. "We meet again," the older Johnny's voice held a mixture of weariness and camaraderie. "Looks like the marsh has a way of bringing us together, across dimensions." Vanjik's breath was ragged as he nodded, his gaze still taking in his surroundings, the mist-shrouded landscape that had ensnared him, the echoes of legends and darkness that had drawn him here. He could feel the resonance of their shared experiences, the battles they had fought, the horrors they had confronted. The older Johnny's .44 Magnum glinted in the mist, a symbol of experience and survival. His night-seeing eyes, a testament to his resilience in a world of chaos, seemed to pierce through the fog. Their meeting was a convergence of past and future, a collision of worlds that defied explanation. "I couldn't just stand by when I saw someone struggling." The older Johnny's gaze was steady, his voice carrying the weight of a lifetime of challenges. "Especially not when that someone is me." As the mist swirled around them, Vanjik's mind raced with questions and possibilities. The legends of Mary Marshwood, the mysteries of the marsh, and now the presence of his older self, it was a tapestry of complexity that he was only beginning to unravel. The older Johnny's gaze met his, a silent understanding passing between them. "We're in this together, across dimensions and time," he said, his voice carrying a note of determination. "It's time to face the darkness and uncover the truth that's been hidden for too long." Their shared resolve hung in the air, a testament to the strength of human spirit, the resilience that had carried them through battles and horrors. As they stood together, the mist curling around them like a shroud, the mysteries of the marsh and the enigma of legends converged. The echoes of their past encounters, the battles they had fought and the darkness they had confronted, seemed to set the stage for a confrontation that would transcend time and reality. As the mist continued to shroud the landscape, the presence of Mary Marshwood lingered like a specter, a reminder that the heart of the marsh's darkness had not yet been extinguished. The older Johnny Vanjik's presence added a layer of determination, a shared resolve to confront the malevolent force that had ensnared the marsh for centuries. Mary Marshwood's form shifted in the mist, her eyes fixed on the two Johnny Vanjikis who stood before her. Her laughter echoed through the air, a chilling sound that seemed to reverberate with the weight of time. "Two of you now? How intriguing. But you can't escape the grip of the marsh, no matter how many versions of yourselves you bring." The older Johnny's grip on his .44 Magnum tightened, his night-seeing eyes locked onto Mary Marshwood with a mixture of wariness and readiness. His voice held a note of steel as he addressed the creature that had plagued the marsh for so long. "We're not here to play your games, Mary. We're here to uncover the truth and put an end to the suffering you've caused." Vanjik's own resolve mirrored that of his older counterpart. The confrontation was inevitable, the clash between light and darkness, between the echoes of legends and the power of human determination. The marsh's enigma seemed to thicken, the mist curling around Mary Marshwood like a cloak of malevolence. With a sudden movement, Mary Marshwood's form shifted, her features contorting into an expression of rage. The mist itself seemed to surge, a wave of darkness that lashed out with an otherworldly force. Yet, the two Johnny Vanjikis stood their ground, their shared determination acting as a shield against the onslaught. "Your tricks won't work on us." Vanjik's voice was a resolute declaration, his flashlight beam cutting through the mist like a beacon of defiance. The older Johnny's .44 Magnum erupted in a burst of gunfire, the shots punctuating the mist with sparks of light. Mary Marshwood's form recoiled, the force of the bullets sending shockwaves through her manifestation. It was a battle of wills, of determination against malevolence, a clash that reverberated through the mist-shrouded marsh. As the mist swirled and the echoes of time seemed to collide, the confrontation intensified. The two Johnny Vanjikis fought side by side, their experiences, their determination, and their shared history serving as a formidable arsenal against the darkness that had ensnared the marsh for so long. In the heart of the mist, legends and reality converged, a battleground of light and darkness, of past and present, of determination and malevolence. The echoes of battles fought and horrors confronted reverberated through the air, creating a tapestry of complexity that defied explanation. And as the confrontation reached its crescendo, as the mist seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, the two Johnny Vanjikis stood as a beacon of resilience, united in their purpose to uncover the truth and put an end to the suffering that had plagued the marsh for centuries. The battle against Mary Marshwood raged on, a collision of worlds that transcended time and reality, a testament to the strength of human spirit in the face of the unknown. The mist seemed to tremble with the intensity of the battle, the clash of forces that transcended time and place. Mary Marshwood's malevolent presence intensified, her power surging as she launched a ferocious attack against the two Johnny Vanjikis. The older Johnny's .44 Magnum and Vanjik's own weapon were knocked aside, their weapons clattering to the ground as the force of her assault sent shockwaves through the mist. Before they could react, the vines snaked out, ensnaring them and pinning them to a tree. Struggling against their restraints, their determination burned even brighter as Mary Marshwood's form loomed before them, her intent clear. She sought to end their existence once and for all. But just as her malevolent grip seemed poised to tighten, gunshots rang out, the sound echoing through the mist with a resounding force. The vines that had restrained them loosened their grip, and as the mist began to fade, a new figure emerged from the shadows, an older Johnny Vanjik, a version from an undead version of Lancaster City. The mist seemed to part in his presence, revealing his weathered features and a grim determination that matched his counterparts. He approached the two Vanjikis, his voice carrying a mixture of weariness and wry humor. "Damn, as if zombies aren't enough to deal with, now I've got other versions of me bringing monsters over." The two Vanjikis exchanged a glance, a silent acknowledgement of the complexity of their situation, the convergence of realities that had led them to this moment. Mary Marshwood's enraged scream pierced the air, a reminder that their presence had disrupted her malevolent plans. As she charged forward, her intentions clear, the older Johnny Vanjik moved with a swiftness that belied his years. His fist struck with incredible force, the impact sending Mary Marshwood sprawling to the ground. The mist seemed to retreat in the face of his power, the atmosphere shifting as his presence asserted its dominance. The three Johnny Vanjikis stood together, a trio of resolve and determination. As Mary Marshwood attempted to rise, they raised their .44 Magnums in unison, the weight of their shared experiences and history fueling their defiance. "Guess there are three now," their words were a declaration, a testament to their unity in the face of darkness. The mist that had shrouded the marsh was thinning, dissipating like a shroud that had been torn asunder. The echoes of legends and battles reverberated through the air, creating a tapestry of complexity that defied explanation. Three versions of the same man, drawn together by circumstance, stood as a force against the malevolent presence that had plagued the marsh for centuries. The mist was fading, the confrontation reaching its climax. The battleground had shifted, the power dynamic altered by the arrival of the third Johnny Vanjik. As Mary Marshwood struggled to regain her footing, the three Vanjikis stood united, their shared resolve ready to confront the darkness that had hidden in the shadows for far too long. The mist had retreated, revealing a landscape that bore witness to centuries of suffering and darkness. Mary Marshwood, her malevolent form rising from the ground, fixed her gaze on the trio of Johnny Vanjikis. Her fury was palpable, a force that seemed to charge the very air around her. With a guttural roar, Mary Marshwood lunged forward, her form a blur of malevolence and rage. The three Vanjikis stood their ground, their .44 Magnums raised in unison. As she closed the distance, a cacophony of gunfire erupted, bullets tearing through the mist with sparks of light. Mary Marshwood's form contorted and twisted, her body seemingly unaffected by the hail of bullets. Her laughter echoed through the air, a chilling sound that seemed to defy the laws of reality. With a sweep of her arm, she conjured tendrils of darkness that lashed out like whips, threatening to engulf the Vanjikis. The older Johnny Vanjik moved with an almost preternatural grace, his movements calculated and precise. His .44 Magnum was an extension of his will, the shots ringing out with a rhythmic precision. Yet, Mary Marshwood's power seemed to bend the very fabric of reality, her form shifting and warping to evade the onslaught. Vanjik and the older Johnny worked in tandem, their shots strategically placed to keep Mary Marshwood off balance. Their determination was unwavering, their shared history and experience fueling their resolve. As the mist swirled around them, the battlefield became a dance of light and darkness, a collision of forces that defied explanation. Meanwhile, the younger Johnny Vanjik's movements were swift and agile. He dodged Mary Marshwood's attacks with the grace of a seasoned fighter, his flashlight beam cutting through the mist as he sought to disrupt her malevolent form. Each flash of light seemed to weaken her, a testament to the power of human determination. But Mary Marshwood was not so easily defeated. With a burst of power, she summoned vines from the ground, the tendrils snaking toward the Vanjikis with deadly intent. The older Johnny's .44 Magnum roared, his shots striking the vines mid-air, each impact a testament to his skill. As the battle raged on, the mist seemed to churn with a malevolent energy, the very atmosphere charged with tension. The clash of gunfire, the lashing of tendrils, and the echoes of history converged in a symphony of chaos. Mary Marshwood's form shifted and changed, her power a manifestation of the darkness that had plagued the marsh for centuries. With a final surge of determination, the three Vanjikis unleashed a volley of shots that converged on Mary Marshwood's form. The mist seemed to shudder as the bullets struck true, the force of the impact sending shockwaves through the air. Mary Marshwood's form trembled, her malevolent presence waning. And then, as the mist began to clear, her form dissolved into tendrils of darkness that dispersed into the air. The battleground fell silent, the echoes of gunfire fading into the mist-shrouded landscape. The three Johnny Vanjikis stood amid the aftermath of the battle, their breathing heavy and their gazes fixed on the spot where Mary Marshwood had once stood. The mist began to thin, revealing a landscape that was forever changed by the clash of light and darkness. The legends that had drawn them here, the mysteries that had hidden in the shadows, had finally been confronted. The three Vanjikis exchanged a weary glance, a silent acknowledgement of their shared victory. As the mist dissipated, leaving behind a world forever altered, the echoes of battles fought and the strength of human spirit lingered in the air. The marsh's enigma had been unraveled, its darkness dispelled by the determination of three versions of the same man. And in the wake of the epic battle, a new chapter was ready to be written, one where the truth had triumphed over legends, and darkness had been cast aside by the power of resilience and unity. As the mist continued to recede, the presence of the other two Johnny Vanjikis began to fade like echoes in the wind. Their shared battle against Mary Marshwood, the convergence of realities and determination, had come to an end. With a final glance exchanged among them, they dissolved into the mist, leaving behind a sense of camaraderie and shared purpose. And now, Johnny Vanjik stood alone at the marsh. The echoes of legends, battles fought, and the mysteries of time seemed to linger in the air. The landscape was forever changed by the epic battle that had unfolded, a battleground where light had triumphed over darkness. Vanjik's gaze swept over the marsh, his flashlight beam cutting through the remaining mist. The memories of the confrontations, the horrors faced, and the unity with versions of himself from different dimensions were imprinted in his mind. He had stared into the heart of legends and darkness, and he had emerged victorious. The marsh's enigma had been unveiled, its secrets exposed to the light of truth. The suffering that had plagued the area for centuries had been confronted and defeated. And as Vanjik stood alone amid the aftermath, he could feel a sense of closure, a chapter in his journey concluded. With a final glance around the landscape, he knew that the legends that had drawn him here would forever be a part of his story. The marsh would remain a place of mystery, but now, its darkness had been dispelled by the resilience of one man who had refused to be swayed by fear. And so, Johnny Vanjik turned away from the marsh, his steps filled with purpose and determination. The echoes of his battles and the weight of his experiences were his companions as he walked away from the mist-shrouded landscape. Legends and mysteries had converged and been conquered, leaving behind a legacy of strength and courage that would forever define his journey. As Johnny Vanjik turned away from the marsh, his steps carrying him toward the horizon, a sudden chill seemed to grip the air. The echoes of his victory still reverberated, but something was amiss. A sensation tugged at the edges of his awareness, drawing his attention back to the place where Mary Marshwood had once stood. And then, from the depths of the marsh, a form emerged, Mary Marshwood, her figure crawling out of the water with an eerie determination. As if driven by an unseen force, her body began to transform before Vanjik's eyes. The passage of time seemed to quicken, a rapid and unsettling metamorphosis that defied explanation. Her youthful features contorted and withered, her form aging at an alarming pace. Wrinkles etched themselves across her skin, her hair turned grey and brittle. In mere moments, the teenage facade had given way to the visage of an old woman, a transformation that carried with it the weight of centuries. But the unsettling metamorphosis did not stop there. As Vanjik watched in a mixture of fascination and horror, Mary Marshwood's body began to decay at an alarming rate. Her flesh withered, her bones became brittle, and her form crumbled like ancient parchment. The passage of time seemed to accelerate in a grotesque dance of decay, leaving behind nothing but the remnants of a once powerful presence. Vanjik's breath caught in his throat as he bore witness to the spectacle before him. The echoes of legends and darkness seemed to echo through the air, as if the marsh itself was purging its malevolent history. Mary Marshwood's demise was a spectacle of time's cruelty, a reminder that even the most powerful of forces were subject to the inexorable march of age and decay. And then, as quickly as it had begun, the transformation ceased. The marsh was once again silent, the remnants of Mary Marshwood scattered across the ground like fragments of a shattered past. The mist began to recede further, leaving behind a landscape forever altered by the epic battles that had unfolded. Vanjik stood at the edge of the marsh, his heart heavy with a mixture of emotions. The enigma that had drawn him here had finally been laid to rest, its darkness extinguished by the passage of time itself. The marsh's secrets, once hidden in the mist, were now exposed to the light of day. With a final glance at the scene before him, Vanjik turned away once more. The echoes of legends and battles would forever be etched in his memory, a testament to his resilience and determination. As he walked away from the marsh, he knew that he carried with him a legacy of confronting darkness, uncovering truth, and standing firm in the face of the unknown. Johnny Vanjik's gaze settled on the shattered remnants of Mary Marshwood's decayed form, her skull now a haunting relic of the malevolent force that had plagued the marsh for centuries. With a mixture of determination and finality, he raised his .44 Magnum once more, the weight of his experiences and battles fueling his resolve. A single gunshot rang out, the sound cutting through the air like a proclamation of victory. The bullet struck true, shattering the skull into fragments that scattered across the ground. The mist seemed to part as if acknowledging the end of a chapter, and then a heavy silence settled over the marsh, a silence that held the weight of closure. Johnny Vanjik lowered his weapon, his breath steady as he surveyed the scene before him. The echoes of legends and battles seemed to linger in the air, but the darkness that had haunted the marsh for so long had been vanquished. The enigma that had drawn him here had been resolved, and the mysteries hidden in the mist had been unveiled. With a final, lingering glance at the shattered skull, Vanjik turned away from the marsh. The echoes of his journey, the resilience he had displayed, and the unity with versions of himself from different dimensions would forever shape his story. The mist-shrouded landscape was now a part of his past, a testament to his strength and courage. And so, Johnny Vanjik walked away from the marsh, the echoes of his battles and the weight of his experiences a constant companion. The legends that had entwined with his own story were now part of his legacy, a legacy that spoke of confronting darkness, uncovering truth, and triumphing over malevolent forces. As he walked, the mist continued to recede, leaving behind a landscape forever altered by the clash of light and darkness, and the determination of one man who had refused to be swayed by fear. The marsh's enigma had been unraveled, its darkness dispelled by the resilience of a single individual who had dared to face the unknown. And in the wake of it all, a new chapter awaited, an unwritten future shaped by the echoes of legends, battles fought, and the enduring strength of human spirit.